Welcome to Bookends. Bookends is made possible through a grant from Five Wings Arts Council, thanks to a legislative appropriation from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund to the Wadena County Historical Society. This month, Bookends will feature the work of Matt Goldman, a New York Times bestselling author and award-winning television writer. He brings his signature storytelling abilities and light touch to his Nils Shapiro series, which began the book Gone to Dust. His most recent book is titled The Murder Show. It will be available in April. The Zoom recording of this program will be available on YouTube. If you have questions for today's author, feel free to put a message in chat. Now, let's welcome author Matt Goldman. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So, how about telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got started being a writer? Was that something you wanted to do from a very early age or something that just happened or
I think I did want to do it from an early age, but I grew up as a kid in the Midwest, mostly chasing a ball every day. That's what I thought was fun. I was a big reader though, and and I didn't have any idea how one could become a writer. I didn't know any writers. Uh, no one ever told me I couldn't be. No one ever said you have to get a real job or anything. But it didn't really strike me until I was in college that, oh, that's what I want to do. And I took kind of an unusual path. I I was pre-med. I was a chemistry major. My junior year of college, some friends invited me to see stand-up comedy live, which I had never seen before. Uh, and I was at the University of Minnesota, and we went to a place called Williams Pub, and I saw stand up live. And for some reason that I cannot explain to this day, I thought, oh, I should be doing that. And and so I wrote material for myself and went up on stage and performed it, which was very difficult for me because I was very quiet and shy and introverted at the time. I'm still introverted, but now I have social skills. Um, and and uh, it went very well for me, which I was surprised about, and I loved the writing part of it. And the clubs in town would often have me open for national acts who came through, people like Dana Carvey and Jerry Seinfeld and Roseanne Barr and Bob Saget, a whole bunch of people. And when I got off stage, they all said the same thing, good writing, which I could take a hint. Uh, but stand up went okay for me, but I did not enjoy being on stage. I really did love the writing. So when I was 24, I got my dented up Ford Escort and drove to Hollywood, and it worked out. I wrote TV for a long time. I still loved books. They're my favorite medium, and I always thought one day I'll write books, but they keep you very busy in television and they pay you well. And it really didn't happen until 2015 that I had a break between television shows. I had a 4 month break. And I was splitting my time between Los Angeles and Minneapolis. I was back in Minneapolis. It was January. It was 11 below out. Both my kids were just left for their second semesters of college. And I sat down and I just started writing, and that turned into Gone to Dust, and it changed my life. Yeah.
cool? Is it hard to get into comedy writing for television? Because I don't think we've had someone that's really done a lot of writing in that respect. Like, how does that differ from writing a book?
Well, television is a collaborative process. And to get hired on a TV show, it's a combination of several factors. One is you write something called a spec script, which is you make up your own episode of an existing television show or create your own TV show. In comedy, they're about 30 pages long, not terribly long. And then you kind of have to be at the right place at the right time and know somebody. Uh, I had from stand up, I had quite a few connections. The biggest of which was Jerry Seinfeld. He and I became friends after I opened for him in Minneapolis. And when he got his show, he asked me to write on it. So that was a really lucky break. I had prepared myself for it. I had worked hard figuring out how to write that stuff, but And it was the beginning, so I didn't know how to write Seinfeld. Nobody did, even Larry and Jerry in the very beginning. Uh, and so it's being around the right people, it's luck, it's timing, and it's having good samples of your work. In the book world, you write a book, at least in fiction. I know in nonfiction they do things called proposals. But in fiction, especially when you're starting out, you have to write the whole book, and then you blind query agents. Nobody really cares though what your day job is, or where you come from, or how old you are, or what color your skin is. No one all they want to know is that a good book or not? And so that's what I did. I blind queried agents in New York. I did not use my Hollywood agents at all. And I'm very happy being in the book world. Let me just say that. It's a smarter, kinder place.
I've always found that I've very much liked all the authors we've met. Unlike some of the celebrities I've met who've written books, the actual
Yeah,
authors are just always been kind, generous, interesting people.
it is
And I
one of
enjoy
the,
selling books.
yeah, and it's like I went from comedy to crime fiction, a very different, it's kind of a weird leap I took. Uh, and one of the things I never expected was this lovely community of crime fiction authors. We get together a couple times a year at conventions and things like that. And I know the local crime fiction authors in the Twin Cities. They're just the nicest group of people, the most supportive group of people from the top all the way down. Uh, TV writers, I have plenty of friends who are TV writers. They're a nice enough group, but there's no community like there is with the crime fiction authors. It's really been a nice one of the great perks of making this change.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the inspiration for becoming the crime writer, the first book that you wrote, and then we can talk about your book coming out in April?
Yes. Um, the I was not happy with where television comedy was going. Part of the reason is, I'll try to make it quick, that television about 16, 17, 18 years ago became very cool. The second golden age of television started with shows like The Wire and The Sopranos and Breaking Bad and House of Cards, even on network TV shows like The Good Wife, all for reasons that are very boring. The movie business was kind of becoming a superhero or little indie thing only. There wasn't much good character work being done in movies, and all that talent flooded into TV. And and it really made TV the cool thing, but they were all dramas. And the comedy people thought, oh, we want to make comedy cool too. But comedy is not cool. So if you look at the great comedic characters, Ralph Cramden on the Jackie Gleason show, not a cool guy. And Lucille Ball, and I love Lucy, she was not a cool person. Fraser Crane was an idiot. George Costanza's even a bigger idiot. Like they're all idiots, but we love them because they reflect us as people. I mean, what people always say Seinfeld is a show about nothing, but I think Seinfeld's a show about selfishness. Those are the most selfish characters on the planet. They act on it. We don't, but we understand the impulse. So it's funny because they actually do the crazy thing that runs through your mind. But it's a very human thing. And it's very relatable. And it's why those reruns are still on. And people, it's very comforting to watch in episodes of Cheers or Taxi, whatever it is. And Friends. And so the comedy was getting slicker and jokier and less human. And I wasn't watching it, but I was working in it. I was just watching dramas. And I thought, I'm going to move to drama, TV drama. And to do my homework for that, I started reading crime fiction because I thought I'm going to end up working on a police show or something. And I don't know much about it. And I'd always been a huge reader, but never crime fiction for some reason. I was like a literary fiction snob, which, I was working on sitcoms. I had no business being a snob about anything. But I, when I read crime fiction, I was blown away to discover this is what I'm missing. Because there's this big human element when you have a crime at the center of your story, the characters don't have to carry the whole weight of the story. There's kind of a built-in engine because things just happen. Like the lab calls and says, "We got the prints off the gun," or whatever happens. And it pushes things forward, and you can spend time on your characters and their relationships. And I'm like, that's what I wanted. All of a sudden, I wanted to do that. And then I had that break between shows, which is a nice thing in television because usually you're either working really hard or nervous you're not going to get another job. And I was in that place where I knew I was going to go back to TV in a few months. So after kind of devouring that genre for 3 years, I just sat down and started writing with no plan or anything. And I wrote that first book in 3.5 months.
Cool. Did you have to do a lot of research to do that, or did you just sort of
A
write it and
little
figure you?
a little bit. I purposely chose a private detective, not a police officer, because I did not want to have to do all the research for to do proper police procedural. And it's not only that I didn't want to do it, I just know would never be able to do it as well as someone like Michael Connolly, um, who covered as a reporter the police for 30 years. So I also was the the trigger that made me want to sit down and write a book is I finally read Raymond Chandler, who I had never read before. And for people who don't know, he's kind of considered the godfather of American noir. He had a private detective character named Philip Marlowe who told the stories in first person and had a very wry sense of humor and of keen social observation, and he would get involved in these kind of heavy, dark stories. But he had a hey, nice cat. He had a I have a dog right here,
Aw.
and another one over there. Maybe she'll sit up and make an appearance. For a second, I thought, is she putting on a mink stole? No, it's a cat. Hello, how are you? Um, so when I saw what Chandler had done, creating this character, Philip Marlowe, with a unique voice who could tell a dark story, that's what clicked in for me. And I thought, oh, I'm not Raymond Chandler. I'm not comparing myself to Chandler or saying I'm in his league at all. But I thought I've developed this comedic voice for 25 years. I can use it to tell a darker story. And that's where the character of Nils Shapiro came from. His life's way more interesting than mine is, but that's my voice. Yeah.
And then this new book coming in April, that's your it's a part of a series then? Using the same
No,
character? Okay.
it's the first four. This will be my eighth book in April.
Oh, okay.
So the first four books I wrote are Nils Shapiro books. Then my publisher asked me to write a standalone, and I wrote a book called Carolina Moonset that did very well. So then they kept wanting me to write standalones. Um, and in this book, it is a standalone, but I reintroduce Nils. He's in 3 chapters, and it does set up his return. There will be more Nils books, which is one of the biggest questions I get. So, and I actually have written the next Nils book. It's for some very boring business publishing reasons. My editor left one imprint at Macmillan, went to the other. I went with her. Everybody wants a clean start, so nobody's going to publish. Neither of those two are going to publish Nils, but somebody will. There's been interest. The book will go out into the marketplace in early 2025, and we'll find a publisher for it. But it's a standalone, The Murder Show. It is about a television writer, a showrunner, which I drew on a lot of personal experience for. And the setup to the story is I used the most recent writer's strike. So he's on strike and he has a show called The Murder Show on a Netflix kind of place. and it's run for 3 seasons, and they don't like his idea for the fourth season. And if he doesn't come up with a better idea, they're going to cancel the series. And he's getting to that age where it's like, if I don't have my own show, I'm too old for someone else to hire. He really feels like his career is on the line. And so he comes back to Minneapolis where he grew up because that's where he does his best thinking, which is also true for me. But now I live here full time again. And he runs into an old high school friend, a neighbor woman who's a police officer now with the Minneapolis Police Department. And when they were in high school, after they graduated that summer, uh, they lost a friend to a hit and run. It happened in Wisconsin, far out of Minneapolis. She now has reason to believe that it wasn't an accident. They never found out who did it. She thinks he was killed on purpose. And she wants, her name is Rosalie. She goes by Ro. She wants Ethan, the TV writer, to help her investigate this because she and says, you can use it for your show. Like you can, whatever we learn, you can create a story out of it and use it for your show. And so he does. And they start this investigation. For her, it has nothing to do with her official job as a police officer because it's way out of her jurisdiction. Um, and these two people investigate together. It's about their relationship, and they reconnect with other old high school friends. And the more they uncover, the more they kind of get into some pretty deep stuff. And this nebbishy TV writer gets in a little over his head. Yeah.
Oh wow, that sounds good. Um,
Yeah.
Going back real quickly because I didn't want to interrupt you. Can you just quickly tell us what a showrunner is? And
Yeah, that's a good question. A showrunner is really the boss of a television show. It is almost always a writer, almost always the person who created the show. If you see the credits on a television show, there's a million producers. One of those executive producers is the showrunner, and that's the person who oversees everything. Television is a writer's medium as opposed to film, which is a director's medium. And so the showrunner hires the other writers who are in the writer's room. The showrunner leads kind of steers the ship as stories are being developed and written and rewritten. The showrunner oversees the director, the casting, everything. So it's a pretty big job. And most people don't understand what it is because how would they? It's a weird job in an already weird business. Yeah.
yeah. Would you do you have are you able to read a little bit from your new book for us or
Oh,
I don't want to disturb the
uh,
dog.
oh, the dog will be fine. I usually don't read. I never hold on a second.
Okay.
I wasn't planning on it, but hey, you have to move. Lazy.
Sorry,
All
doggy.
right, hold on. Let's see. Um, I'm not prepared for this.
That's
Uh,
okay.
um, I'll read a little bit and then I'll stop. So
Okay.
just from the beginning, so this doesn't really give anything away for anybody who wants to read the book when it comes out. So, chapter one: 22 years after Ethan Harris heard Ricky O'Shea's blood, yes, heard Ricky's blood as it dripped from his body and splattered on the soft ground below, Ethan wheels his carry-on bag into his childhood home. He drops his luggage in the entryway, walks through the small living room, and continues into the kitchen where he sees a note on the countertop. Welcome at the Shapiros, home around 9. There's a plate in the refrigerator if you're hungry. XOXO Mom. She signs her text too, as if Ethan doesn't know who the sender is. He's about to check out what's inside the refrigerator when he looks out the kitchen window and sees Rosalie Greeman. At least he thinks it's Ro Greeman, standing in her mother's living room. The Greeman house is directly behind the Harris house. No backyards, excuse me, the backyards run into each other. No fence, no hedge, no trees. No obstacles whatsoever, so Ethan can see clearly into Roe's mother's house. Roe and a man appear to be arguing. Their arms flail. The man's back is turned toward the window. Ethan can't see his face. But he can see Rose and he feels her anger. Ethan used to know Roe well, back when they were teenage neighbors living in these houses with parents and dreams of leaving and never coming back. Roe and the man stand 5 feet apart. They're pointing at each other, shouting at each other. Ethan, of course, can't hear a word, but he knows Roe's body language. At least he used to. He has no idea who the man is. The argument looks like it could escalate into something physical, something dangerous. Dangerous. Ethan is far from a tough guy. He's never been in a fist fight in his life. That's 40 years of never fighting, and it seems a little late to start now. His choices are to call 911, hope the police get there in time to stop whatever might happen, or to go over there himself and knock on the door like the old neighbor he is, just to say hello and tell Roe that he's back in town for a week or two. And Ethan exits the kitchen and walks back through the living room that hasn't changed since he moved out of this house over 2 decades ago. He rarely visits Minneapolis anymore. The Harris family gathers once or twice a year, but usually at one of the siblings' home, which is far larger than his parents' bungalow. Ethan's always surprised to see the same Sears furniture, soft made man fabrics and earth tones, same light sucking drapes, same Judaica on the bookshelves, reminding him that he's returned to Minneapolis to visit his parents for the high holidays. That's the excuse he gave them anyway. The real reason is more complicated and desperate. There's the familiar Seder plate, menorah, and Shabbat candlesticks. Nothing has changed. For Ethan's entire youth, his parents lived like they were on the run. But when they settled down, they really settled down. He continues toward the front door and catches sight of himself in the entryway mirror. When Ethan was in high school, this is where he'd check his hair before leaving the house to meet friends. Back then, he had no gray hair, no lines on his forehead, no crinkles around his eyes. Now his dark curls are riddled with silver, and Ethan's olive skin complains about life. He's missing the one thing he had in high school, cocksuredness. He was sure of himself when he was younger, a confidence blanketed in ignorance. But then life did what life does, and all that youthful bravado leaked out through the lines in his face like steam through fissures in geothermal rock. Perfect. No confidence, and he's about to knock on a neighbor's door to interrupt two fighting adults. That's that's where, and then he goes over there. That's the start of it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think us wish we still had the same like know everything attitude in
Yeah.
our adolescence.
Yeah, watching my kids go
Yeah.
through that, I'm like, well, where do you get this confidence from? But I'm sure I had it too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I knew everything at 15. I know nothing now. Cool, cool. And this is coming out in April,
April
the new
15th.
book.
Yes. This is the title of, I mean, this is the cover
Cool.
of it. It
Maybe
is
we can.
one of my favorite covers so far. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, maybe we can get you to come into the or just across the river in Hudson when it comes
Yes,
out to do a signing or
absolutely.
something.
Yes. I drive that
Because
way
that'd be
all the
nice to
time
meet in
because
person.
yes, I fly fish. So I'm always going through Hudson to get to the Kinnickinnick River or the Rush River. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
We
Yep.
are in conversation
Cool,
to
cool.
make that happen, Shelley. No
Yes, we are.
worries.
Excellent. Because we love having people come in and giving people an opportunity to meet authors. Um, and then they're certainly going to want you to come up to Wadena as well after the book comes out because you got a lot of fans up there. Some of
Great.
them watch later because they can't always make it, but we do have a following.
Yes, I see a
So that
question
came
on
in.
here
And
that, yeah, go ahead.
did you see the one about the agent in New York City? Somebody
Yes.
was interested in that.
I did get an agent quite quickly. I had queried a lot of agents, some were interested. And then I don't know if any of you know Wendy Webb. who's a local author
Mm-hmm.
who writes these great gothic horror type novels, often set up near Duluth somewhere. She and I went to high school together, and I was just asking her about the process of querying agents, and she asked to read the book, the manuscript, and I sent it to her, and she said I would be happy to pass this on to my agent, um, who's in New York, and she did so. And of the few agents who were interested in representing the book, that agent, Jennifer, I thought understood it the best, and I liked her the best, and I went with her, and uh, I it seems like it was yesterday, but this is the eighth book. I just signed a contract for the ninth and 10th books, and there are two more books coming out. So there will be 12 books total, and five of them will come out in the next 2.5 years. So
Wow. So
yeah,
just for some of our viewers who are aspiring writers,
yeah,
what is something you would give them if they're looking for an agent? What are you looking for when you're, I mean, I know part of it is looking for an agent who's actually going to represent you. Um,
yeah.
but if you had more than one to choose from, what would you be looking for?
Well, there's information out there. And for anybody who's in that position, I highly recommend a website called querytracker.net that lists all the agents. It lists who's accepting submissions. It lists what they're looking for, genre-wise. Is it mysteries and thrillers, romance, literary fiction, whatever it is? You can also see who else they represent. So if there are some writers that you really admire, you can find the agent that appreciated that writer's work and got it out into the marketplace. That's what it's. I don't know how people did it before that website. I think there's a big thick book called Publish or something, but I never bought that. Um, and so it was a really efficient way. They all tell you what they want. Usually it's a query letter, which is one page, which basically introduces your book and a little bit about yourself. And sometimes they ask, paste in one chapter or three chapters, or they just want to see the query letter and they'll let you know if they want to see any more. So, but that website's so valuable because you can really focus on the agents who you think might be interested in your work.
Cool. Yeah, I think it was, if I remember correctly, because I've been a bookseller off and on since the 90s. There used to be a big, thick book called The Writer's Market, and it was published
Yeah,
like every year or every other year. And it
yeah,
listed
that's
all
it.
the publishers and magazines and agents, and yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Um, so you said you spent a few years reading a lot of mystery writers and
Hmm.
such, and so I'm curious, who are some of your favorites or inspired you the most, or whose work you really, aside from um
Chandler. Yeah,
okay, blanking. And I
yeah,
Marlowe.
yeah. Uh, Joe Nesbo, a Norwegian writer. Uh, he, uh, he writes.
Hmm.
There's this police officer named Harry Hole who is a in the Oslo Police Department. I really like his books. Kate Atkinson, who's a British writer, writes in and out of the genre. Very funny and interesting writer. Um, Anthony Horowitz, another British writer. Walter Mosley. Um, um, Megan Abbott is one. There's a Southern writer named Ace Atkins I really like. He writes a great series set in a fictitious town in northern Mississippi. He's a wonderful writer. Um, it's it's a lot. Those Thursday Murder Club books I really enjoyed, the Richard Osman books. Um,
Those have been
And
popular, yeah.
yeah, uh, so quite a bit, even though it's not crime fiction, but John le Carré, the great British spy novelist, really is one of my favorite authors ever. Yeah.
I like The Spy Who Came In From the Cold,
Yeah.
like Hurray.
Yep.
I have a number of his books. I,
Yeah.
I really like the genre. Mystery, any sort of mystery thriller is just, I don't know, there's something about it.
Yeah.
Fiction, you're just like, I've read this page 3 times. I don't know. I'm putting it down. Watching TV. Cool, cool. Um, so where are the Nils Shapiro books located? Like,
Where are they set?
yeah.
They're the first three are set in Minnesota. Um, Gone to Dust is in the Twin Cities. The second book, Broken Ice, takes place. It starts at the high school hockey tournament in St. Paul and goes up to Warroad, Minnesota. Um, the Shallows is mostly around the Twin Cities. The fourth book, Dead West, starts in St. Paul. Nils is hired by an elderly, wealthy couple who live on Summit Avenue, and their grandson has just received his trust fund in millions and moved out to LA. And they're worried he's going to blow it all out there investing in TV and film. So they don't only trust in Minnesota. They send Nils out there to find out what's going on. And that was really fun for me because I lived in Los Angeles full time for 20 years and I commuted back and forth for 10. And I never felt at home there. I always felt like an outsider and a visitor. And so I really wanted to show Los Angeles and show business from a Midwesterner's point of view, seeing it for the first time. And that was a lot of fun for me to write. So most of my books are set in Minnesota. Carolina Moonset is an exception. It takes place in Beaufort, South Carolina, uh, where my mother's side of the family is from. So I've been going there since I was a baby. So that was another thing I did not have to research in my never-ending laziness about research. I do research. I don't want to get things wrong, but I don't want to do so much research that I feel like, oh, I did all this research, so I should put it in the book because that can really slow down a story with details that have no relevance whatsoever. Um, but the other uh, A Good Family is set in the Twin Cities. The my book that came out last April, Still Waters, is set up at Leech Lake, and now this book is set in the Twin Cities and Wisconsin.
Yeah. It sounds like, a lot of interesting experiences in your own life that can be brought to bear on the books and stuff like that. Because, yeah, it is. I've moved places and found that no matter how long you live there, they always let you know you're not one of them. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's cool that everything is all real. Like you're not creating fictitious
right.
places. You're using your memories of place.
Yeah, and like when I wrote Carolina Moonset, I went back there twice during the writing of that book to make sure I wasn't using just memory, um, and refreshing myself with it. So I got it right. Yeah, and when you're a fiction writer, I'm sure it's true for all fiction writers, you use everything. Every part of the buffalo, all of your life, every little moment you remember, it all comes into play at times. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times we ask authors who come on to talk a little bit about their process. Like some people are like, I get up at 5 in the morning and I do this, this, and this. Or some people like, oh, I work and have kids. A lot of women are like
Yeah.
finding little pockets to write in because they've got so much. So we're always sort of curious as to how you go about the process of writing a book.
Yeah. Well, that first
Do
book,
you take a lot of notes? first? Do you have an outline or do you just start writing?
I do not have an outline. I just start writing. I've worked on over 500 episodes of television. I wasn't the writer on all of those, but I was one of the writers. And you have to outline in television because all the different departments have to be on board and know what's coming, and networks and studios have to approve. I can't tell you how many times an outline that everybody thought was great uh, was handed to a writer who went off and wrote a script that was faithful to that outline, and the script didn't work. There's there's something. You use a different part of your brain to write an outline. It's kind of the same part of your brain you use to make a shopping list. It's very logical. This happens, this happens, this happens. But if you create characters who are three-dimensional and feel real and behave consistently, they don't always fit into a logical story. People behave in ways that are consistent to their personality, but ways that other people find hard to understand. And and so I kind of believe in creating from the inside out. I tend to write in the mornings. The second and third books, I was working full time on television shows, so I started getting up at 4 and writing before I went to work. I kept that habit up for a couple more books until I realized I don't have to anymore. I'm not working on a television show, and but I tend to work. I'm usually working by 7 something in the morning, and I'm word count based. So if I hit my word count after 3 hours, I'm done for the day. If sometimes it takes 12 hours, and I'm always kind of figuring out the story as I go. So like I have an idea I just finished a second draft of the book that's going to come out in 2026, and my wife's going to read it. She always reads first. And while I'm waiting for that, and then I'll have to wait for my agent, and then I'll have to wait for my editor, I'm going to write another book. And I like the first 5,000 words I basically wrote in one day. It came really fast. But now I don't know where it's going. So I have to spend a day figuring out the story a little bit. So I write a lot of actual words, but I'm also always figuring out story as I go.
Cool. Yeah, I to your point, I'm not sure if you're familiar with How I Met Your Mother, the show
Yeah,
probably.
yeah,
Um, the whole where they had to because of the kids the ending first. Like I didn't care for where they ended up because they thought they had to force the characters out of where they should have been moving towards to fit their
yeah,
original idea rather
yeah,
than let them grow and develop organically.
yes. And that's a problem. I've worked on a lot of television shows. I've been a lot of them from the very beginning, including Seinfeld. And you just don't, you have a plan, but if you're paying attention as a writer and producer, things happen. Certain characters form chemistry on the stage in front of the camera, and certain characters tend to pop out more than others, and you find things that work and find things that don't work, and it's a dialogue really, especially in the beginning of you might have this whole thing planned out for your TV show, but it's probably going to change as you get going, and that's true writing a book too, except people don't see those early chapters of your book. um, and they do see them of your TV show. There's episode 1 and episode 2 and episode 3, and then you may realize, oh, this is working and this isn't. And it kind of goes off in a different direction. That happens all the time in television. I mean, Kramer on Seinfeld was not supposed to be this big crazy character. Michael Richards just kind of invented some of that, the physicality on the stage, and then it took Kramer in a whole new direction. And it was great because all he had to do was enter and he got a laugh, you know. So and those kind of things happen. There was a show called Family Matters with the character Urkel on it. That was supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be about the dad and his family, and then they had this. Jaleel White was played this just like small neighbor part, and then he kind of took over the whole show. So those kind of things do happen all the time.
Yeah. Sort of like in real life. You have a plan, you have a
Yes.
10-year plan of where you're going to be 10 years from now. And you did not add in things like 9/11, your mom dying,
Yeah, the pandemic,
getting
the
sick, losing your job.
yeah,
All of that was not in the 10-year plan.
right.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
you just
So
kind of got to pay
that's
attention and
that's life.
adjust as you go.
So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. Somebody asked a question about like when you're thinking of your book, like as you're going through your day, do you jot notes down if you get ideas, or you just hope you remember them, or do you have a little voice recorder, or
Sometimes, I mean, I
you
used to
know,
carry a miniature pen in a little notebook all the time in the olden days. And then once the iPhone came out, and I stopped doing that because there's a little notes app. I will make notes sometimes, but I'm also pretty good at remembering it. Um, but I will jot down things from time to time. Yeah, or once in a while, like if I can't do it, I'll make a voice memo or text myself or something like that. Yeah,
yeah, I've come up, I've had like brilliant ideas, and I always am like, oh, I'll remember this because I don't have anything to write it down, and then I forget it, and I'm like, all
right.
right, well, this is why you're
Yeah,
not.
I after a while I realized like there's probably not many great ideas, or I shouldn't say great, good ideas that I'll forget. Um, I might forget some of the bad ones. Every writer has had the experience of I have to keep a pen and paper by my on my nightstand because I'm gonna wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, and we all do. And in the morning, rarely are any of them good. Uh, the ones you have during the day might be good though. Yeah.
Well, they did it. Seinfeld did an episode of that where he woke up in the middle of the night, wrote something down on his notepad. In the morning, he couldn't even read it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That kind of thing happens all the time. Yeah.
yeah. So, what do you think is the best thing about being a writer? What do you like best about being a writer?
Well, I'm introverted, so I get to spend a lot of time alone, which I like. I'm fine with other people, but I recharge as alone, which is, and that I should clarify, that's what I like about being a novelist. As a television writer, it was just the opposite. You're in a room full of people for 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and I found that exhausting. As funny and brilliant as many of them were. Um, and I do like that I just get to, really with novels especially, just follow my own process and my own path and let things develop and without a lot of outside influence. That will come, that will go to my editor and we will, she will bring things up and I will do some rewriting, and that's okay. But I do get a first shot at it, which I really love. So, and I like, I mean, I just like the book world. I like the bookstores and the libraries and the other authors. I like meeting readers. Uh, it's they're my people, so I feel lucky that I get to be part of that.
I sort of have to concur as someone who's been in the book selling world off and on since the 90s. I've
Hmm.
enjoyed all the like the authors. Just we've met some seriously famous. I've met Margaret Atwood, and
Wow.
she was so nice and kind to everybody, and she was already like Margaret Atwood when I met her.
Right.
And I met Chris Bojalian, who was super kind. I've met so many authors, and all of them, no matter whether they were just starting out or were really famous. David Sedaris was a joy. It's just always a
Oh, wow.
pleasure. And the booksellers and the other independents and just the readers, all the people involved in the book world just seem like you are correct in your assessment that it is a really nice community of people that care
Yeah,
very
very
much about
supportive.
words and stories.
Yeah, I remember my very first book. before it was even published, I went to something called BoucherCon, which is it's a weird name, but it's the big international mystery writing convention that's held in the States every year. And I went in 2016. My first book came out in 2017, but it had been written and it had gone out for blurbs. And both Lee Child and Harlan Coben blurbed it, which was really nice. And I saw them at this thing, and I've been around plenty of famous people, like really humongously famous people that I am like friends with on a daily basis. And I was nervous to go talk to these guys, and boy, they could not have been nicer. They were so nice and generous and offering praise and it's just kind of the way it is in the industry. It's a really lovely group of people. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you find that you get more recognition as a book author than you did as a television writer? Like the
A
people,
little bit. I mean, writers don't get, you mean like a little bit, like I'm starting to get a name, especially in Minnesota. And but like no one recognizes me when they see me. And that's true of almost every single author. Like even Harlan Coben and uh, Margaret Atwood and uh, Lee Child and whoever the biggest giantest best-selling J.K. Rowling. If you saw them on the street, you probably wouldn't recognize them. Very few people would. Maybe in our world, but it's uh, it's the best thing about being an author also that you don't lose your anonymity. Like you can go out in public and just be part of it, just be part of the woodwork and observe, and it's really great. Yeah. So
right?
and no one
Like
knows who
actors lose
TV
that. Yeah.
writers are. Yeah. Yeah. Actors do lose that. I feel terrible
Yeah.
for them. It's hard being an actor, that attention. I always felt bad for the actors and what they were going through. Because they, especially on TV, they get so famous so fast. Uh, and they have people from third grade calling them and say, why do they do your hair like that? You look better with they hear stuff like that all the time. It's really got to be difficult. Yeah.
Does anybody else out there have any questions that they want to send to me in the chat? Go ahead and do that so I can ask if you have a question that hasn't been covered yet. We'll just wait. So, wait, I'm trying to read a question here. Hold on. Ah, Gillette suggests you out yourself in bookstores so that people will buy more books because you're there to sign them or something.
I do
Like, hi,
not.
I wrote this book. Would you like to try it?
I do not do that. I don't hang out in the mystery
Well,
section and say,
that's
I
a
heard that one's good in a fake mustache and sunglasses. Yeah, I don't. I probably should, but I don't.
no, that's what you have us for. No,
Yes, thank
when
you.
I see someone lingering by a bookcase, I walk over and go, "Can I help you?" And then I'll start handing them tons of books, and hopefully
Yeah,
they'll buy one out of guilt.
I
Like,
love
oh,
I
she
love
tried so hard. I'll just buy this one.
it's great when booksellers hand sell books. It's really, I think that's what makes those independent bookstores so special. Yeah.
Well, from all the people I've met in the indie world, we all really love books. And while we all might be passionate about different genres or different authors, we absolutely love to talk about all the good books we've read. We'll talk to each other about, have you read
Yeah.
this one? Have you read this one? And whenever I meet an author that I really like selling their books. Like, oh, I
Oh, that's
loved the
nice.
book, but I also met the author and thought they were a great person too. So I'm going to go the extra mile and really try to make sure people at least see it and somebody hopefully
Hmm.
will read it. And I've found that sometimes the best way to become a bestseller is word of mouth. Because like James Patterson's books are going to be on the bestseller list the day they come out. But
Yes.
other authors that get there, it's generally you read a book and you tell everybody about it and then they read it and they tell everybody, and it's that whole
Yeah.
Fabergé commercial from the 70s. I don't know if you remember
Yes,
that one.
yeah,
With
I
the
do
shampoo.
remember that
You
one.
tell two people and
I
they tell
am
two people.
I am old enough to remember. Yeah.
Cool. And what kind of dogs do you have? Sorry, I'm a dog lover
I
and trainer as
have
well.
Clara sit up so they can see
That
you.
look like a doodle.
They
Yes.
look like doodles, but they're actually poodles.
Oh,
They're poodles that
poodles,
don't
cool.
have poodle haircuts. So
Yeah.
I was living in Los Angeles and my golden retriever passed away, which was devastating. And
Yes.
the last few dogs I have had were so hairy. I'm like, I got to get something that doesn't shed because I was becoming an expert on vacuum cleaners, like things that I shouldn't be wasting my time with. And and so I wanted to get a doodle, but they were so popular and expensive, especially in Los Angeles. And then a friend said that she grew up with standard poodles and they were great. And I'm like, I don't want a dog with those puffs all over them. And he's like, you don't have to get those. Just give them a regular haircut and they're really great dogs. And I got one, the one who's laying down and not on, she's not up here on the couch. Um, and she's been such a great dog that when I got this one too. Their names are Maisie and Clara. Maisie's almost 11, Clara's
Cool.
6. Uh, and they're very active outside. They're sporting dogs, hunting dogs, and inside they're super mellow. So it's a nice combination.
Yeah, I always found it interesting because the haircuts make people have a certain idea about poodles, but they're
Yeah,
actually very smart,
they're
and
very smart.
and
Yeah.
they are hunting dogs.
Yes. Yeah. Now I don't hunt
All right.
anymore, but they go on point when they see something go in they're very good hunting dogs. Yeah.
No. Yeah. I walk an Iredale Terrier that actually tries to drag me after deer. So I've
Oh wow. Those are
developed an
great dogs
aversion to
too.
deer because,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Wow, we are looking forward to your new book coming out in April and hopefully getting to have you in the store to meet you. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we
No,
finish?
I don't think so. Thanks for giving me a chance to talk to people and I look forward to seeing you at the store. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice to connect. And hopefully I'll get to Wadena also.
Yes, we'd love to in both places because I'm sure there's people in both places following us that would love to meet you. And thank you
Yes.
so much for this wonderful interview. It was
Oh, my
great. Thanks
pleasure.
for sharing
Have
everything
a
with us.
have a great weekend and great holidays, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, you too. Happy holidays, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.